Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the sixth in a series of market briefings we're running prior to our hybrid ATE in June to update you on the various market situations around the world and, of course, any relevant trade partner information around ATE itself. My name is Lee Sorensen from the industry team at Tourism Australia. Really pleased this afternoon to be able to bring you our Continental Europe briefing today. I'll be getting us started here this afternoon and then facilitating some question and answers at the end, time permitting. Before we begin though, in the spirit of reconciliation, Tourism Australia acknowledges the traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and their connections to land, sea and community. We pay our respects to their elders past, present and emerging. First up today, you're going to hear from our Executive General Manager from Continental Europe and well known to many of you on the webinar here today, Eva Seller, who will give us a Continental Europe overview. Then Tourism Australia's three key distribution and partnership focused team members in Europe, being Jonathan in Germany, Ludwine in France, and Matteo in Italy, are going to have a discussion with three guest speakers from Der Touristik in Germany, Australia Tours in France, and Discover Australia from Italy, with Philip, Aurelia, and Marco. And the team will introduce those speakers more fully when they come on. Then time permitting at the end, we'll have some question and answer. A little bit of housekeeping around all this before I hand to Eva. The session today will be recorded and available at a later date on the registration site. A link will also be sent to everyone when it's been made available to us. Please submit any questions you have with the Q&A option at the bottom of the screen. Better if you do that through the course of the presentations rather than right at the end. Then we can try to answer those as we go along. So please, if you do have any questions, please do submit them as we're going along today. If we have time, we'll review those. Otherwise, we'll respond after the briefing. We'll also be sending out a survey at the conclusion of the webinar. It only takes about a minute to fill it out, but it gives us some valuable feedback about what you'd like to hear about in future briefings. And on that note, I am now going to hand over to Eva.
Hello, good morning, everyone, in our case, as far as Europe is concerned. So guten Tag, bonjour, buongiorno, my trademark welcome to you all the time. And I'm delighted to welcome you from sunny Frankfurt. I'm extremely happy to see that we've had a huge interest in our update from Continental Europe. And I look forward to sharing a little bit of our world at present, our insights and perspectives on Continental Europe. Lee has already gone through the sequence of events this morning, and the only thing I'd like to add to this is, first of all, you will receive a copy of this presentation in the follow-up emails. And if your questions only come to you at a later stage, don't worry, I think you know where to find us, and we are always there to answer those questions and we'll be delighted to. So, first of all, a little reminder, when borders were open and visitors traveling, that's what Continental Europe was all about. And our strength, as a little reminder, was the spend our visitors left on the ground, dispersal and the length of stay. And in all honesty, none of this will change when we do come back. Now more than ever, do I believe that our visitors will go to the remote parts of Australia, explore the different parts of the country, and really want to get under the skin of the destination. And the length of stay, in all honesty, I think is more likely to increase than decrease because people are thinking more consciously about the way that they travel. So what's the state of play in Europe at the moment? We've got 4 vaccines that are being administered across the various European countries at present. And we were off to a bit of a slow start to our vaccination program initially, but we are catching up now. We are sitting at about 20% of our German, French, and Italian population having received the first dose of the vaccine, and just under 8 or 7% respectively being fully vaccinated in our countries. And just when we were preparing this presentation, to be honest, the figures were climbing day by day. When we started, we were sitting at 16, which was about 4 or 5 days ago, and now we're sitting at 20. So you can really feel a renewed level of optimism that comes alongside that. Europeans are still very eager to travel, and you will hopefully hear a little more about that later when we come to our guest speakers. And whilst the crisis has obviously been very hard on some people, economically speaking, from their job situation or other, if I look at the overall economic picture, the unemployment figures in our markets are actually reasonably stable and haven't climbed up dramatically at this point in time. Our economic forecast is equally good. And the one area that gives us, I guess, a reason for hope is the fact that household savings are at an all-time high across the 3 countries. Now, there are a lot of words on that slide. So basically, you would have seen from the media that Europe is going through a 3rd wave of the COVID-19 pandemic at the moment. And we've got 3 countries here, and we've got even more stages of lockdown within the countries and very limited movement and travel at this very point in time. And I'd be lying if I said that the population wasn't a little bit tired of the different measures and the ever-changing regulations that we are going through at present. However, with increasing levels of vaccination, the levels of hope are equally increasing. And we do know that our audience, they are keen to travel, and there is quite a bit of pent-up demand. And we know that because as soon as a destination opens to welcome visitors from our markets, we can see the bookings increase. And there are currently countries that are welcoming our visitors, and some of them are in Africa or places like the Maldives and Seychelles, Dubai in the Middle East, and there are people who are very keen and eager to travel to these places. We even know from some trade partners who are actively pushing sales to Australia for 2022 that they are having people who are happy to commit their money and happy to commit their time for a trip next year to have something to look forward to. We know for our specific target audience for continental Europe that they do have money to spend and that they are happy to commit to those trips. Australia will probably come to the party a little bit later than the other countries, and that presents a bit of a challenge for us, that we fear to lose market share, at least in that first opening, to some of our friendly competitive nations. Obviously, the question that we all have is around the border opening, and the importance of that is for our colleagues from the commercial world to actually be able to plan their businesses and to reassure customers on, making that booking or postponing a still existing booking. As you would know, many of our European trade partners, whilst they are still operational, which is the fantastic news, work on heavily reduced hours, which sometimes makes it a little bit harder to get hold of people here in Europe, but the majority of them are still there and look forward to engaging with you. We do, and you would have heard this from some of my colleagues, we do expect youth and working holiday to be some of the first returners to Australia, if and when they can, as well as the premium segment. I don't want to go into aviation for too long because, to be honest, of course, at the moment, it is a heavily reduced market situation. However, if and when there is real traffic to Australia, which isn't limited to repatriation flights, our airline partners are talking to us, are in contact with us, and are keen to increase capacity as soon as they can. Again, in the road ahead of us, we are following a similar approach to our colleagues across the world. We are currently keeping brand Australia alive and defending our market share through always on activity, be it in the content space or in the digital space. We are engaging with our trade partners and training and upskilling those that are keen to sell Australia. And then we are obviously preparing so that for the moment we hear Australia will open its borders, we can go into a more commercial, a more tactically driven space. And we do not know how much notice we will get, so we need to be ready even without a lot of warning. As for the other markets, we have been conducting consumer research, and that is soon available on our corporate website. But basically, what is reassuring to see is that our high-value travelers are still very happy to travel to Australia. They still like us for our great outdoors and beautiful nature, as well as the aquatic scene. And we have started testing the area around Indigenous experiences, and it's very good to see that there is even an increase within that area to attract people to Australia. In terms of activities at the moment, these are some examples of the always-on content-led approach that we are driving. So the 8D video series, and then a digital campaign on conscious travel, and currently on wildlife travel, all of which are resonating extremely well with our audiences in France, Germany, and Italy. Very happy to say that the Marianne, which you see there, it's a dedicated supplement, a print supplement that has just 2 days ago hit the shops for Australia, and it's on 200 tips on how to travel in Australia, and it's under the motto "Dream Now, Travel Later," and it's a beautiful piece. Coming up next month, in the month of May, is a digital content special with leading website GeoDE, which is targeting different self-drive areas around Australia, and some reasons on why to choose Australia. We had in late 2020, so in December, we had another print supplement in the publication Geo Special, and that was a beautiful dreaming piece on why people should consider Australia. In France, and that is an exciting activity that is going to launch in July this year and runs for a year. So it's a bit of a cultural connection between the two countries, Australia and France. It's driven by the Australian Embassy in the market, and we are partnering with them for a special department store activity with a store called BHV or BHV, which is an upmarket store, and which will be brought to life with all things Australia in early 2022. And there's also a food-related element that we are working on in the European autumn of this year. And in Italy, we've partnered up with Lonely Planet, which is a very important medium in that market, to benefit basically from the Lonely Planet award that Australia has won in the community space. And we are extending our content options in that market. Overall, PR has probably in the consumer space played the most vital role across the time that we've been active. And I'm happy to go into more detail with each one of you, but media are eager to engage. They love our positive stories. And so that's been a success story for us here. On the distribution side, as we've said, we've had various forums where we've trained the Aussie specialist agents, and I'm personally very pleasantly surprised on just how positive the feedback has been. Our agents are keen. Our trainers in market have come up with fabulous formats for each of the markets on what to present, and the success rates prove us right in continuing to talk to this audience. For our distribution partners, we've come up with a few activities to engage them more deeply with Australia, and a dot painting workshop with Maruku Arts in the Northern Territory was a huge hit with all of us, and we discovered some hidden artistic talents on the ground as well. And last but not least, ATE, the reason we are all here today. Feedback and subscriptions from European buyers to this event have been fantastic. And it really shows that a virtual format can also help attract some people who normally wouldn't be able to dedicate the time to travel to Australia. So it's got its advantages and disadvantages. As we've got 81 delegates, we didn't have the space to put them all on the screen. But if anybody's interested in hearing more who this is, we are happy to talk to you. But our big names are there, as well as some smaller, more specialist operators, and for the first time, also some real luxury buyers from our region, which we are delighted about. So I am going to hand over to my colleagues, Jonathan, Lidwin, and Matteo in that order, to talk to our partners on the ground who've very kindly given up their time this morning to speak with us. So we're going to hear from Philip from Dare Touristic, and Jonathan is going to introduce him in a second. Then we are going to proceed with Aurelia, who I believe needs no introduction in this forum and who is an absolute legend in the Australia tourism scene. And we will follow up with Marco, where we are extremely delighted that Marco has been able to give up his time this morning and talk to us, because not only is Marco obviously a co-owner of a very important Australia brand in Italy, but he's also involved in the broader tourism scene in Italy and can give us an insight there. So, without much further ado, I would like to welcome Jonathan from the Frankfurt team to conduct the interview with Philip this morning to learn more about state of play in the German market. Thank you and welcome, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, Eva, and welcome everybody this morning or this afternoon, wherever you are based. A very warm welcome to Philip this morning. I really appreciate you taking the time and joining this session with us to give us a little bit of insights from your point of view personally and company-wise. So for all those who don't know Philip, he works for Der Touristik based in Frankfurt, Germany for quite a while, is responsible for long haul and especially here for Oceania in Australia. So again, as I said, we really hope to get some insights from you on your point of view of the current situation. So I do not want to waste any more time, so let's kick off on this. So I think the first question that might be interesting for the audience here is, what's your general feeling, sentiment for your company, Der Touristik, but also for you personally, and your view on Germany at the moment? And you're on mute. I'm sorry to say this.
The first one always has to do that. Well, good afternoon and good morning, everyone. Thanks for having me. Well, it's interesting. Our company is doing quite well considering the circumstances. We have a very strong mother company, so financially, commercial, of course, things are devastating, but the company is doing fine. We belong to the Rewe Group, which is one of the biggest trading groups in Europe, so that's okay. The sentiment in Germany in regards to travel is really difficult. There are openings, closures, even within the country. So that's a bit annoying, so to say. We are able to sell holidays currently, mainly for Europe and for summer, because the outlook is quite good, at least in a few destinations. We are even selling a few long-haul destinations that are currently somewhat open, but of course this is nothing compared to our usual business. And in regards to the big long-haul destinations such as North America and Australia, we are desperately waiting on news in regards to the border openings or closures, because this is probably, as Eva already mentioned, the biggest concern that we have right now. We need some security for planning.
Yeah, but you just mentioned this on the long haul. Do you see demand for these long haul destinations in terms of requests in the retail shops or online or on social media, wherever you are active?
Yeah, of course, we always have to look at the volume relative to what we used to have, but those destinations on sale, they sell. Some are even quite good. Quite well, and we also receive requests for North America, so there are bookings, and just recently we also have seen some bookings starting to come in for Australia, and as Eve already pointed out, those are the ones that are more in the premium segment, probably not in terms of luxury product, but in terms of how long the trip is, how much money the customers spend. So this is promising, because usually that would be the time where we collect the most bookings for the upcoming high season. So it was encouraging to see at least a few bookings, even though the borders are still closed and we don't know whether they will be open this year, next year. So the bookings we received, they were actually for November, December, starting to come in. So of course there's some hope that we can materialize them.
Yeah, and you just mentioned the bookings coming in. Do you see a change of what's being requested and what's being booked, if they book already something for Australia in specific?
No, not really. And actually, I would be surprised, because we all expect that our customers are looking for the same things than they looked for before the crisis. So these were the usual itineraries, longer itineraries, combining round trips and various module-based products like single hotels or shorter packages. So that was fairly normal, and that's kind of a relief for us as well, because things would probably get even more complicated if we now need to change the entire product range upside down just because of a different demand in terms of travel. And so for most of the destinations, we expect the same kind of products being demanded. Probably smaller shifts here and there, but nothing dramatic.
And in terms of, it's good to hear that they're still requesting the same products and still eager to experience all that Australia has to offer. Is there, in terms of the whole COVID and security piece, do you think, or do you see any requests in terms of this, in terms of security and, let's say, security labels or whatsoever that people are requesting? Or
it's probably not the product itself or the labels. Currently, I think the of utmost importance is to have security in terms of booking and some kind of flexibility. So we need to have security in terms of what we can offer. Is it still there when it comes to travel time? And the other part is flexibility. In case we need to change something, we need the flexibility of our partners to not charge rocket high cancellation fees. I mean, this is probably the wrong thing right now to impose. So that's the kind of security that we are looking for. When it comes to opening borders into traveling, I would think that everyone expects that the borders are only open when measures and protocols and security in general, in terms of the COVID situation, is already there. So I don't see that as important for now. I think it's important when it comes to travel, but we all trust that between our countries, I mean, those measures are checked and being in place. So currently, it's more about how do we encourage customers to book and to have the confidence that they can already book this high season without expecting too many changes.
Yeah, of course, that makes total sense. And probably one of the last questions here from my side to you. Do you think that people will kind of hesitate when something like a vaccination is mandatory, or do you think what's your opinion on this?
Well, me personally, I think it's a good thing to be vaccinated. I mean, currently talks around politics are exactly in that direction. That's the first ease of restrictions is going to be for those who are vaccinated. And I think it would make our lives in the travel industry a lot easier if that would be the standard. If it comes to testing regimes and protocols that need to be in place, it will get more complicated, but I don't think it will be a blocker. So I think the next few weeks or months will just show how difficult or how easy it will be amongst the different stages of security, from vaccination down to probably testing while traveling. So I think that's given.
So you, in terms of expectation for the summer, it sounded to me it's quite optimistic, because you can see demand is there. And
well, it's difficult. Of course, for a few destinations, I think our company is very optimistic, because we see that measures are already in place and that bookings are picking up. I mean, in general, looking at the entire globe, so to say, there are a lot of destinations that simply will have no business this year and will only slowly come back to the stage. And of course, for a company like ours selling worldwide destinations, that's not a good thing, because we can simply not sell everything we want to sell. But yeah, I mean, there will be traveling this summer. And it will probably on short-term demand, probably. I mean, people decide were very short before, but at one point, everybody has to decide where to go. And at that point, it's not clear which country is going to be open for sure. They will just book something just to get out of here. Because it's been a long time in lockdowns and not being able to travel. So customers need to have the confidence and security. Where can they go? If they know they can go, for example, to Australia in December or in November, they might go for that. And not do something in summer like USA, Africa, what Eva mentioned on her slides as well. So, I mean, Australia is usually a once in a lifetime or a few in a lifetime travel options, at least the itineraries that we are seeing. And so you wait until you have the confidence and the security. And if that is not here, they will just wait another year. And that's something that we need to, we need to work on, or Australia needs to work on, to give that confidence when they can travel again. And then I'm quite sure that we see those bookings, as Eva said, savings in record high. There's a lot of money to spend.
Yeah, all right. Thank you very much. I think we covered most of it, and I take, the end of it with the outlook that people are still wanting to travel as soon as borders are open. They just need the security that they can open. And as Eva mentioned, as you said, there's money in the German travel pockets and still wanting to travel. So thank you very, very much this morning for joining, Philip. It's been a real pleasure. And I'm now heading over to my wonderful colleague, Lidwin and Aurelia, who are going to meet you in the jungle.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Philip and Jonathan. Yes, so we are both in the rainforest this morning or this afternoon for you. So I'm Lidwin, the country manager for France, and I'm delighted to welcome Aurelia from Untitled, and I'm sure most of you know her already. So welcome, Aurelia.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good morning. Happy to be there. Thanks.
Let's talk about France. So Aurelia, can you tell us what is the general sentiment in the tourism industry in France?
Yeah, at that stage in France, as some of you know, we are still on lockdown. So the situation is very quiet, but we are really optimistic because many people still work from home and they just want to escape at some stage, see something different. So with the travel agents and the customers, we know that there's a real wish to travel, and we just wait for the green light.
All right. And so in broad terms, can people travel outside of France at present? Yeah, go ahead.
At that stage, unfortunately, we can't leave the country unless we have a very good reason. So yeah, we have to stick in France for the moment, but things should ease in few days. As our president said, the situation will ease starting from early May. So
I'm sure we'll soon have some very good reason to travel. So they do want to travel, but where do they want to travel to?
We can see that people just want to escape somewhere. So we can see that French people tend to book their summer holiday in France, and they consider all destinations that are currently open. As Philip said, they just want to be able to get away. So as soon as a destination open, then people consider that destination to travel, which is a good point.
Thank you.
So we go ahead, Lidwin.
No. So what I would like to understand now is, and I know you've been doing a lot of things via Australia Tour. So what is your current strategy to keep the engagement with the retailers and with your clients?
We try to be creative. We try to make people understand that we are still there, which is a good point. We still have a great passion for Destination Australia, as you know. So we have organized few webinars with travel agency network, try to train them, introduce the new product. We have produced an e-brochure for this current season, creating some new itineraries, on remote places in Australia, because we think that there will be a demand for that on the French market. We have introduced as well some self-drive, eco-friendly self-drive with hybrid vehicles. And we have creating some a little interview of myself talking about Australia with patients that we have shared on social media. We post different messages on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and we try to convert negative messages that we can have from Australia, such as, you know, the floodings with the spiders, into something very positive, saying, yes, there is some spiders, but you can also meet with friendly wildlife. So anything we can do to promote the destination and keep the dream of Australia alive on the French market. This is really important, because we know that there will be a very high competition between the different destinations on the world when the reopening will be possible.
For sure,
and we don't want
very active.
Yeah, and we don't want to be the last one.
Yeah, and thanks for keeping the dream alive. You've been very active on social media, and I'm sure your clients, but also all of our friends from the industry might have seen your videos and interview, and truly your passion is there. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
So AT will take place in June. So what are you looking for from the Australian suppliers' point of view? And also what kind of support would you require from the sellers to be prepared for the relaunch?
So I'm waiting for a lot of information when I will attend AT, because we know that, you know, few suppliers have adapted their offer to the national market, the domestic market, and we just want to be aware of what is available. Few changes. We know that some accommodation has closed for the moment, but maybe they will reopen. So we need to get those information updates. We know that new products have been created as well, so we are more than happy to have more information about that. As Philip mentioned, you know, flexibility will be one of the key words. It's really important to get the confidence from the customers, and they just want to be sure that if they book something, that will be something that they will be able to experience for real. So all those information, I guess that for AT price for next season will be ready, because we have already started. I mean, I've already started to work on the next season. You see, I'm very optimistic. So any materials that we can have, any information will be more than welcome. Same regarding airlines, we need to know about their capacity and the new routes, because we know that some networks have changed a bit as well. So yeah, the key message is flexibility for conditions and information updates. Yeah.
Good. So yeah, I mean, you're ready for the next season for sure.
Yeah.
And so it comes to my last question. How is the market moving for long-term bookings for 2022? And do you see demand for long haul at present for the French market?
Yes, there is demand for the long haul, and there is an interest on that region, Oceania. There's an interest for some destination. Depending on the opening date, things may change a bit, but at that stage, French Polynesia attract French people, and it's long haul and not that far from Australia. So New Zealand, and for Australia, we do get some bookings, not that many, but few bookings for 2022. People are still a bit, you know, afraid of thinking of this current year, or at least last trimester year, because there's this lack of visibility. People just want to make sure that if they book something, they will be able to travel. So they are more considering 2022. And that's why I said it's so important to have information during AT for the next season and get ready for that. And no doubt that there will be a demand. There's a real wish to escape. So yeah, we need to be ready. And we hope to be, you know, on time with good offers for the restart, because at that stage, as soon as we will get a date for the reopening borders, I think we will be able to have tactical offers and yeah, communicate to convert the wish of travel into real bookings.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Aurelia, for your insights.
Always a pleasure.
And now I will hand over to my Italian colleague, Matteo Prato, and his guest Marco Pecci. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lidwin and Aurelia. So here we are, last market for today. Welcome from myself. I am Matteo Prato and I'm the country manager for Tourism Australia in Italy. I work very closely with Eva, the rest of the team in Continental Europe, and I'm very glad to be here today with you and to have as my guest Marco Pecci, who's a legend in the Italian market. He is the co-owner of Discover Australia, and he is also the commercial director for one of the biggest and leading tour operators group in Italy, the Quality Group. And last but not least, also has a prominent role in the ASTOI Association, which is the Italian Tour Operator Association. So thank you very much, Marco, for being here today.
Good morning, Matteo. Good morning to all of you, and good afternoon in Australia. Thank you for your kind invitation.
Marco, so we have seen what is the trade sentiment in Germany and in France. What can you say from your perspective in Italy? What's going on in our market?
Well, it's quite the same. Trade is an Achilles by the length of this emergency. We are surprised by the capacity of the resistance of travel agency and tour operators here. Until now, and for the next month, we had and will have state aids, so we can hold on for next month, waiting for a departure that here we see is low but coming. Finally, our market thinks that there will be a redeparture since July 2021. There is a lot of people waiting for travel abroad, and we think that we are going to open our border gradually in the next 6 months.
Yeah, we have seen across all the markets that there is a huge demand and a huge desire to travel. What are you selling at the moment, and what are your expectations for summer 2021?
We are mostly selling in Italy at the moment with an hesitant Europe, and within the countries outside Europe, Israel, Dubai, Morocco, and the USA, even if these last 2 countries, Morocco and USA, in the hope that they will open their borders soon. Israel, Dubai, USA, the Great Britain too, in Europe, have a very good image for how they have handled this vaccination campaign. These countries are very reliable for consumers here in Italy. About Australia, we have a good number of requests for October, November. We are trying to turn those requests to January and February, but often I have to say that they prefer to change destination at the moment, but we keep strong.
Yeah, we know that we are coming. We were already last-minute bookers in our market, and I think that we are learning to be flexible enough to accept last-minute bookings and change our strategies.
Sure.
In terms of, you mentioned that the role of travel agents and tour operator, you are surprised of the resilience of our market and of our colleagues. What is your current strategy to keep the engagement also with the travel agents? From my perspective, I see you and your group being super busy with the webinars, and so tell us about your strategy and how you are keeping on the engagement.
But we spent this long year organizing more than 1,000 of meetings by webinar with travel agents and consumers, and spreading tons of posts about Australia highlights. Right now, I can say that we have done about 600 webinars reserved to travel agents to describe our 120 destinations all over the world, and about 500 webinars dedicated to customers. Every day we have about 2-4 meetings a day, in the morning, afternoon, and often in the evening too. We did till now more than 75 webinars with Australia as subject. We have declined these webinars dedicated to Australia in Tasmania, South Australia, Wild Australia, Queensland and Coral Reef, and so on. A lot of fantasy. We had more than 50,000 spectators till now, mostly travel agents, but about 30% of consumer. In the meantime, we sent 3-4 newsletters a month to 70,000 travel agents with travel ideas in Australia to Australia from 2022, and this is all.
Well, this is all. This is a lot, and I see that you are spending most of your time.
It is more, but you have no time to understand what we have done, because we have done a lot of things in the last year in the commercial and marketing field.
Oh, it takes a lot of time to plan all these webinars and these to find the content. And we are lucky that that Australia has so much to offer, and we can provide such a variety of content. Listen, Marco, from your perspective, and there is a question in from our audience about the aviation. So we know, and we are seeing, you mentioned USA and Dubai. We see kind of corridors opening, and we see that also the airlines are driving a little bit the demand. What are your expectations? I know that it's hard to predict, but from your standpoint, you see a demand, and you see what is the role of the aviation in all of this?
It's very important because, as you know, to come to Australia, we need good yes. But at the moment, we confide in Emirates, because it's getting better day after day. Their frequency from Italy to Dubai and other destinations all over the world. So I think that Emirates, Qatar Airways could be a good choice for us in the next month, and so we have no problem at the moment with this question of aviation here in Italy.
Okay, great. So we're coming towards the end. Which are your expectations for 2022, and how do you see the things moving forward?
Dunque, I think that we need flexibility above all. I think it's very important for us, and I think that it's good. It's getting better day after day, and it will be a good year for a relaunch of tourism. And I think that Australia could be a good choice for our customers, because has a lot of highlights and important points that people need today. I think that flexibility, the first one thing that we need, but I think that Australia could give us this.
And Marco, one final question from my side. What is the lead time that you think that you will need to put out product and market the destination before the borders opening? We talked about flexibility, but things cannot happen overnight.
Yeah. As you say, an important thing for us is to spread on the market a strong information about the state of your vaccination campaign and how much under control is COVID. This is a very important point for us. And this is the first point we need to spread communication and the good news from Australia. We need to build our sales day after day. So we need a right information about when you are going to open your borders as soon as possible, because we need to build our sales, and we need almost 6 months to build our information, our proposals on the market.
That's great. Thank you very much, Marco. And
thank you.
It was a pleasure to have you here. And I call back my wonderful colleagues from all over Continental Europe. I think we exhausted the questions to our key trade partners. So I want to call back Eva, Lidwin, Jonathan, Aurelia, and Philip, Lee, and we can take
that's it.
questions. That's it.
Yes, thank you, everyone. Great insights. Look, we've had a couple of questions that come in that we'll get to. We might end up finishing a little bit early if we don't see any more come through, which is fine. I did want to just say, which I didn't up front, and I think Eva, you acknowledged it, but yeah, thanks everyone for getting out of bed so early over there to come in here and speak to us today. There were some really great insights there. I'm amazed at, well, I probably shouldn't be amazed, but it was amazing to hear about what you're doing to keep the Australian dream alive. So many of you, those stats you were throwing out, Marco, 75 webinars and 50,000 people, like that's incredible. Well done. And yeah, thank you everyone for that work. Look, I don't think we've got an answer for this, but thank you, Birgit, for asking that wonderful aviation question. I might throw this one to you, Eva, but so this was about aviation, and the question is, just for the benefit of everyone else on the webinar, is the aviation scenario is important. Obviously for us here in Australia, we'd like to get some information on what the airlines are planning to do about the flights out of Europe when borders open. So I guess, Eva, in terms of routes that are being discussed, or do we have any sense of any of this at all?
Look, it's actually very, very hard to answer that question for the simple reason that actually the airlines are waiting for, well, when I say for us, it's for Australia. They need an indication on when will Australia open and what are the entry conditions. They've all made it very clear that the Australia route is one of the most profitable ones in terms of the yield that they have, and that they do their utmost. I mean, they are, for example, various airlines, including Singapore Airlines, but also Qatar, Emirates, Etihad. They currently work a lot on installing consumer confidence in the safety of air travel. So they are talking about their vaccinated crews, they are talking about the airport journey, etc. And they are trying to equally from their side keep the spirit of flying alive. And we see that in particular from the companies that I've just mentioned. We do keep the conversation up with them, but they make it very, very clear. They need the signal that they can fly without the quotas that they have at present, and that the flights need to become profitable again. But I mean, there are companies like Qatar who have kept the route going, Singapore Airlines as well, but currently mainly to take back home Australians. So, and to be honest, with the number of passengers they're allowed to carry, it's a bit hard for those airlines. But they keep engaged with us. They want to know more, and they will be ready. But obviously, it depends on which destinations open when, because they will not hold back an aircraft in the good hope. They will send the aircraft where it can make money. So, Birgit, unfortunately, the only thing I can tell you is that we are keeping the contact there, and that we realize the work they do to make the customer feel confident about air travel is extremely important in the current time. And also forums like in Germany, for example, the Chor Touristik, which is the association of tourism boards, or in our other markets, the equivalents. We are also discussing this because Australia without a flight is hard, if not impossible. So that's an area of focus for us as well. From a broader level, obviously, there are conversations with the airline head offices. They're not led by us in region, but from a Sydney head office point of view, also about the levels of support that we can bring to the airlines to obviously start on a commercial basis as soon as it is viable.
Great, thanks, Eva. I might actually try and tackle this one a little bit myself. The other question here was from
I've also got something on that. Yeah.
On Angela, for you in North Queensland, there, asking a question about students. I think this was probably when either Aurelia was speaking. Perhaps it was about would students perhaps be able to leave for work in Australia? They'd be very welcome. I'm sure they would be, Angela, but I think one of the challenges for us is we probably need to convince our own colleagues here in Australia to open the borders to those students first. For the benefit of our guests here, one of the things we very quickly realised in the past 12 months is how incredibly reliant many parts of Australia are on working holiday makers, those 200,000 people, many of them from Germany and France and Italy, who have come out here and travel and work and spend their money. Well, they're not in the country. The hundreds of thousands of students are not in the country, and many people on skilled visas are not in the country. And so in many parts of Australia at the moment, despite only domestic tourism going on, we have some real labour issues. We just don't have all those wonderful international people who work in Australia are not here. So it's a real issue. So I'm absolutely sure we would welcome students, Angela, but I think we've got to convince our colleagues to
and Lee,
to
if I can add to that, Angela, they would come. I know this for sure. Because that generation in particular, the school leavers now, or those at university, I mean, life has changed for us all. But if you're either very young or very old, it becomes that more urgent to get back to some kind of a normality. School leavers, and I've got 2 godchildren in that age range. They would be in Australia right now. That was the plan, but they can't get into the country. So I know that they are keen to sort of resume something that resembles normality, and a year abroad is part of that for many of them. And we are in touch in France, but also in Italy and in Germany with those tour operators or trade partners that engage with either working holiday makers or with backpackers and or students. And I know Matteo had recently shared an example with me on a company that attempted to do something. The challenge really is the entry into Australia and getting a visa at this stage and being allowed in. So Matteo, what was it that you shared with me at the time and the level of interest?
Yeah, actually a company from Italy, but they operate broadly across continental Europe on youth products. So working holiday visa, but also gap years and students abroad for schooling. They put up a program together with the Northern Territory and an airline to try to put together a package for bringing in students, and the demand was definitely there. So the moment that they put up the offer, even though the price entry point was pretty high, the demand was definitely there. In a couple of weeks, they reached almost the number up to charter a plane. So the demand is there. It didn't materialize because of the regulation, because of the quarantine rules and the space to find a quarantine place for those students. But definitely, I'm sure that if the regulation would be solved, the demand would be there.
Great, thank you. We haven't had any more questions come in, but look, just a couple that I might throw one to our guest speakers. I think Europeans tend to travel this way anyway, but one of the questions we're often asked here about, themes that are going on around the world is about sustainability. And I just wondered, across the touristic and, with you, Marco, and you, Aurelia, do you see any of your customers asking about sustainable travel in any more way than perhaps they would have previously?
And I think Aurelia can then add a little bit of what she's recently done in that subject.
Yes, we can notice that there is a demand for that. And that's why, for Australia Tours, we have created those self-drive with hybrid vehicles. And on the new e-brochure, we have put a new logo saying that this supplier or this product was really engaged on sustainability. So, of course, there will be a demand for that. But keep in mind that on top of that, there will be the budget as well. So it will be a balance between the budget and the sustainability, and but there is an interest, that's for sure. And that's why, I think that Australia has so much diversity and so many different experience that there will be something for everyone.
And Philip, or
maybe handing
Marco?
over to Philip.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question, and it's a common question these days, whether we receive this demands. There was actually quite an interesting research conducted in Germany by a tourism research company, and they have asked that question as well. And the answer was, okay, if it's there, we take it, but we are not specifically asking for that as a client, which is very interesting. But it's probably up to the industry to engage that topic and to bring it further so that everybody can benefit from that. And that's exactly what our company is doing right now. So we have recently launched a brochure, a collection of products with sustainable tourism, which is not narrowed down to just natural resources, not using plastic, etc. Probably that's a given, but also giving back to the community, etc. So it's a very interesting topic, and I think it will go across every destination at one point. We started in Europe with that. Part of that is compensation for flight. So Australia would be heavy on that for sure, but I think at one stage every part of the world is being included in these kind of programs, similar as what Aurelia just said. We just have to stress what is already there so that it can creep into the normal product, and then I think it's going to be fairly normal for customers to choose these kind of products.
And Marco, from your perspective?
Yeah, we have an increasing sensibility about sustainability in the tourism field, and we have improved some itineraries, some providers about this question. But at the moment, the key of approach of, I believe that the key elements for the success of a post-COVID destination for Italians will be flights cover-free, large spaces, small groups of oversized bus, high level of health infrastructure. I think that we are going to move to these questions to our market because they're most important for us at the moment.
And Lee, if I can add from our point of view, I think that word sustainability is very heavy. And I think it almost creates a barrier between what people want to do and what they then do. I think people want to feel good about the trip they take. They want to get they want to justify to themselves, but also to those around them, what their trip achieves, what they do, and whether that is giving back to a community through, in our case, for example, some of the community projects or some of the Discover Aboriginal experiences work, or whether that is staying in a place where you realize, oh my God, they are either carbon neutral or even positive in that sense. Or whether you find out that, like in my case, my partner, without telling me our last flight to Australia, he had actually compensated and just not talked about it, where I went, oh, wow, you do these things. And he went, yeah, of course I will do that. I think it takes different elements for different people, but for all of them, we want to feel good about the trip we do. And if you can then contribute to something like, I don't know, a wildlife conservation activity, or you can replant trees where there have been the bushfires, for example. Any of these activities that help you achieve that feel good about your trip, I think they will be higher in demand in the future. But to Aurelia's point, there is obviously always a budget that each person has for their trip. It can be a high budget, but it's still a budget. And we need to be mindful of how people go about that in particular.
Fantastic. Well, I think on that note, we're only about 2 minutes off when we were planning to finish anyway. We might call it.
Can I just?
Yeah, sure, Eva. Go ahead.
So from my point of view, first of all, just looking at the screen and seeing our different backgrounds, I know you've heard it before, but I miss you guys in Australia and I miss you a lot. The experiences I see on Facebook, the images I see, it makes me pretty homesick to come and be in Australia. And I know for our trade partners, it would be the same. We were all hoping that we could travel to your part of the world for ATE, and we will have a virtual event, which is the best we can do at this point in time, and we will be there. But what I'd like to leave you with is, please remember us in Europe, keep connecting with us, keep engaging with us, because the visitor we send your way will continue to be every bit as important as they were before the borders closed. And they will go to regional areas, they will book experiences that go over several days, and they will want to engage across the different fields that you represent. So Australia is what we have at heart, but we have it even more at heart to pass it on to our customers and our agency networks. And if you have any great ideas of how we can have interactive sessions with yourselves, with your product, anything that can engage people here by doing something, tasting something, or seeing something in a different way, please get in touch with me, and I'm happy to share with my colleagues Jonathan, Lidwin, and Matteo, because we live in a virtual world as far as Australia is concerned at the moment, and we need to keep that world alive. And equally, I would like to thank Marco, Philip, and Aurelia. I should have started with Aurelia, ladies first, very bad of me. I loved listening to you. I love the fact that you're still so passionate and engaged with Australia, that you make yourselves available here. And I've already had a few comments where some of the people on the webinar have asked me to put themselves in contact with yourselves. So I will do that. It's been absolute pleasure to hear from you and to see you here engaging with Australia. And Lee, on behalf of all of us here, we are extremely delighted that you've brought on this webinar to talk about Europe. And I literally mean it, any of the Australians that need to know more or have a specific request which is relating to your specific area of Australia or your product, please do reach out. We are only a Zoom call, a Teams call, or a phone call, God forbid, away. So let us know what you'd like to know from us.
Never been so close.
That's a good note to finish on, Eva, and I'd pass it back the same way in saying, look, on behalf of both Tourism Australia here in Sydney, but also the industry here in Australia, I'll thank everyone here, like not just my colleagues, but all our guest speakers for keeping the Australian dream alive. We can't wait to see you guys in Australia, and more particularly, we can't wait to see your customers back here in Australia. So thanks everyone for joining us today. Really appreciate your time, getting up early, doing all this. Have a great day. We'll go off and have a wine or something now ourselves.
Yeah, we might stick with the coffee for the time being.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Merci.
Merci.
Danke.
Bye.